Given f of x equals x squared plus 1 and g of x equals square root of x, let's find these three examples. Okay, here are some tips. Put a star. We're going to work from right to left. Class, how are we working? Right to left. So you kind of start over here, and we're putting 1 into our function of g. So we're going to put 1 inside of g. So here's g. Let's just write that. G of x equals the square root of x. And what we're doing is now for every x value, we're putting in 1. Class, what is the square root of 1?
1.
G of 1 equals 1. Pick your favorite color highlighter. And let's box that. Okay. So let me kind of visualize this for you. Now we're taking our answer and we're going to put it inside to the function of f now. Does that make sense? It's kind of like you got your new gadget for Black Friday and it's the controllers. Now we're putting it inside of your phone. So my function of x is x squared plus 1. And instead of writing x now, what are we going to put in there? We're going to put in g. F of g of 1. Class, what did we get for g of 1? We got 1. So 1 squared plus 1. Let's kind of just do like 2 substitutions, right? And what is 1 squared? 1. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. F of g of 1 equals 2. And that's our final answer. So let's review what we did. We basically have 2 functions, f and g, and we're computing g first. We're working from the right side over here and then going in that direction. Okay? Let's try another one. This one looks kind of funny. Golf. How would I write that in function notation, class? What letter do I write first? G. Let's write it just like this one. Now what? F of -3. Class, where do I put in the -3 into? F or G? Everyone say F. How do you know it's the F? Because you're working from right to left. Let's find f of -3. My function of f is, I'm just going to write the original problem above so you kind of know where I'm working from. And now every x value, what are we going to put in? Every x value we're going to put in -3. So, cost -3 squared is 9. And 9 plus 1 is 10. F of -3 equals 10. I'm going to pick my favorite color highlighter. Okay. Now what function are we going to work with? We just did f, now we're going to do g. G of x equals the square root of x. That's my square root. Now, for every x value, we're going to replace that with f of -3. Let's use my highlighter. Every x value now, we're going to use f of -3. And f of -3 is equal to what? 10. So g of 10, and we're going to put that into my every x value, is now the square root of 10. So my final answer is g of f of negative 3 equals the square root of 10. Yes, you can see it. Alright, in this third example, it actually doesn't tell us like a parentheses of something. Do you guys see that? So let's write this more like in function notation. So we would write what? F parentheses G. Okay, now there's no number, right? So if you have no number, as someone implied, you put in X. Class, when there's no number, what do you put? X. Okay. So basically, let's write g of x, because we're working from the right side to the left. So g of x equals the square root of x. Now, I can substitute that in there, right? Does that make sense, what we're putting there? So let's write down our function of x is x squared plus 1. And instead of writing x now, what are we going to write, class? G of square root of x. So instead of writing x now, we're going to put what here? The square root of x. What does that mean? How many of these do you have? You have 2 of them. Square root of x times square root of x. Well, you can put them in the same house. Class, are they a pair? Yeah, so you're just left with x plus 1. Okay? They're opposites. Think of it as like, if I did this, the square root of 9 is what? 3, and then 3 squared is 9, or you could just say they cancel. Do you see that? Okay. Alright, now to explode your brain. Ready? If I had to think about this, here's my analogy. I know it's really old. In our house, we have this video game system called the Wii. It's the original Wii, right? We still play it. But think about it. Can the original Wii games work inside the brand new, what is it called? In the Nintendo Switch. Does it work? Some of them actually do. I'm assuming. I don't have a Nintendo Switch, but I think it's all virtual now, right? It's just uploaded to a server. Does that make sense? But think about this. Can the Nintendo Switch games work in my old Wii? It's not. It's not compatible. Okay? There's restrictions. Alright, here we go. If you think about what the domain is for x squared plus 1, it's just a parabola. And my domain here would be negative infinity to positive infinity. Are we okay? The square root of x looks like this as a graph, because you memorize that on your 12 basic functions. Yes? The domain is the square root of, or including 0, bracket 0 to infinity. Okay? Which one has more restrictions? Think of it as like a teenager and your parents. This one says do whatever you want. There's money on the table. And you can come home anytime you want. This says no. You're going to come here at this time, and you're only getting this amount of money, and you better show me that you're doing your work. So this one has the most restrictions. Okay. So this one we call the most restrictive domain. Most. Write that down. Restrictive domain. It basically says that we can only look, let's see if I have another color, how about purple. This is the most restrictive domain here. So that would be bracket 0, comma, infinity, and this would be our answer. Now you only need to do the most restrictive domain you're actually using it for all of these, but it's actually more implied when you have no number when you're evaluating. So if you picked, do you see class says -1 work here? It doesn't work, does it? Because if I put in the square root of -1, what is it? It's an imaginary. So then if I take that answer and put it in here, it's not going to work. Does that make sense? It's kind of like putting that old, I have something called a Game Boy. It's like the original. It's like taking that cartridge and then putting it into your iPhone XR. It's like not compatible. It doesn't work.
I love math. You don't love math? What's wrong with you?